Hi there, guys. How are we all today? And welcome to the September Google Hangout. I can't believe it's September already. And this is a hangout that I've really wanted to run for ages and ages and ages, because I know that, you know, every time I meet new mums in business, many of us are struggling with these challenges, and that is the challenges of getting your partner on board with your business, and I guess having as little friction and as much agreement as possible when running our business, because, you know, obviously there are so many different challenges that you can have. You can have challenges with understandings of when the money is going to come in, and then, you know, maybe you're the passionate one and he's all about the money, or vice versa. And I really think this is such a huge area for contention. And at the end of the day, we absolutely need to have that person at home supporting us in this, because if you don't have them, it can be very isolating. But obviously a lot of us don't even know how to talk about it or where to begin. And also the other thing I do come across quite a bit is also partnerships within like friends, like, you know, friends running a business together. And again, I've seen many of these start out where people are like, we're best friends, we'll never have any problems, and yeah, I've seen some big explosions. So that's why I was so excited when I found Trish on a Facebook group and realized that that was her passion and something that she was an expert in, because I've really wanted someone to talk on this topic. I think everyone's going to get loads out of it. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Trish. Welcome, Trish.
Thanks, Ellie. It's so gorgeous to be here. What you're talking about, this sort of being a mum is really hard work. Running your own business is really hard work. Being in a partnership is really hard work. And when you put all three together, it can be really challenging. And, you know, getting your partner on board with you in your relationship, and on board with your parenting, and on board with your business it can be quite a minefield to walk for some mums to get all of those pieces in place. So it's something I get really revved up about, and I'm always very happy to talk about. So thank you so much for having me. I'll try not to get too ranty.
No, rant away, it's fine.
Awesome, all right. So I'll just share some slides. I've made some slides up. These, what happened is I worked, I'll put the slides up because that makes it easy. And I'm guessing everyone can hear me, and can see the slides. Everything good at your end? Hearing slides still good, Ellie?
Everything's perfect, Trish. Yep, all good to go.
Great. So to start with, I get really excited about communication. I've done a master's in communication from that more business side of public relations and writing and expressing ourselves in that more sort of structured approach. And I've also done a master's in wellness, and the bit that I got really excited about when I was studying that was, how do we connect with each other? How do we communicate with each other? And through that process, I learned how to become a coach. It's now something that I lecture at RMIT about wellness coaching and about wellness. And the bit that's really exciting about it is using communication as a tool to connect. And to connect in a way where you get to have your, you know, the truth of your voice, not just communicate to get things done, but communicate to really show up as the whole of who you are. Does that make sense?
Just so you know, I've got myself on mute just to stop the noise there. So if you ask something and it takes you a few seconds to answer, that's why.
Beautiful. All right. So from talking with a lot of women in business and a lot of mums, this seems to be what people are calling out for what they want. We want to be acknowledged for our contribution. So often what can happen is that we can feel like we're not, when we're running a business, our partners can look at it like, oh, that's some sort of a hobby, or that's that's not in, it's not a real job. There can be these old mindsets that can come into play where your contribution isn't acknowledged as much as you like. This can also happen in parenting, is that there's not a great awareness of something that I love the term emotional labor. And that's where, and you know, in old traditional roles, man goes out and works, woman stays home and looks after the children, and it's been sort of seen. It can be that sort of lesser, that idea that, oh, that's not as big a contribution. So if you've got a partner who is downplaying your contribution in terms of your role of looking after kids and downplaying your contribution of what you're putting into your business, then that can be a really disempowered place to be coming from. So what I hear people say is they want to be acknowledged for everything that they're putting in. It might not be going out working 9 to 5. It might not be doing what their partner does, but it's a contribution that is powerful and has its own strength and its own value. The other thing I hear a lot is that it's about connection. Like, I want my partner to understand how important this is to me. So I want my partner to share my dreams, and I want them to be part of what this is, but they need to understand that it's important. So that's another thing I hear. And the last one I hear a lot is, I want them to understand that this makes me happy. So it's not an option. It's not up for negotiation. This is part of my fuel, my destiny, my desire to put my passion into the world. So yeah, there's not always that awareness that that having our own business is part of what makes us happy. It balances that really demanding role of being a mother to go off into a world where you get to follow your passions and create these amazing things out in the world. Okay, so I'm going to get a little technical on you because I love frameworks. I get a bit excited about these sorts of things. But the thing that we're going to look at is exploring the dynamic of what's happening and dive into each of the skills and figure out how to move forward. So I've developed this model, and it's about the way that we communicate with each other. So that circle in the middle are the places that we have the connection. So we connect with ourselves, and without connection with ourselves, it's very difficult for us to connect with anybody else. So connection with self is in the middle. Then we have that connection with your, with your family, with your community, with your place, with the earth, and then the connection with the whole. So that could be something that was spiritual, that could be understanding where you sit within the world. So that's just the context, but the main bit we're going to look at today is this idea of being, belonging, and becoming. Because these are great little, if you can remember the 3 Bs, being, belonging, becoming, it gives you like a stepping stone to go through when you are communicating with your partner about what your dreams are, what your business is, and getting them to come on board with you. So we'll go into a bit more of that. I'll just check in. How's that all going, Ellie?
Perfect, love. Absolutely fine.
Great.
Yeah.
So we'll break it down now. So we've got the being, and the being part is that really exciting, this is the connection with self-stuff, like what my awareness and my appreciation and my acceptance and all of that really good stuff that juices us up. Like it's the juicy, who am I in this moment, getting centered, being grounded, being able to move forward from a place of power and compassion. The next part is belonging, and this is where you get to show up as yourself and communicate that to everybody around you. So it's not about fitting in, it's about actually really belonging. And this is the area that is so, so important in this sharing, getting your partner on board with your vision. Because what often happens is that if we feel that we're not being acknowledged for our business, if we feel like our business is being downplayed or that it's being criticized, we tend to hide it away. And with that, we hide away that part of us that is is so integral to that. And so the belonging part is where we go, if they don't like it, that's their problem, but this is me and I believe in it and I'm going to share it. Because your partner can't get on board with something that they don't know about, that they're not told about, that they don't have any idea how important it is for them. So there's a bit of, in that authenticity part, there's a bit of boundaries, like of being able to say, well, this is mine and that's yours. And right now, this is something I'm passionate about and I need you to hear me out. Like, I need you to see how exciting and important this is for me. And the last part of it is about becoming. And this is where it's like the vision and the planning and the action and making choices together, where it actually comes into happening. So the big thing in all of this is that you guys have the answers. Like, it's not something that the how to communicate this, you can always get help with, but the truth of who you are and the truth of what your passion is, that's within you. All right, so we're gonna skip into the being. So being is about being in the moment. So we're wanting to be able to be in the moment as much as we can. So when we're talking with our partner, the first step in trying to get them on board is to come back to ourselves. Really be within your own awareness and be really centered. So one way I center is just to take a nice deep breath and let it out. And that just helps me to get back and feel grounded and centered. So you can give that a go. The other one is that I often use is to feel my feet. So if I'm about to go in and talk to somebody about something that's a little bit like, oh, I'm not sure about this, then I will feel into my feet and really feel my feet on the ground, and I feel a lot more grounded that way. So just by taking my attention and putting it into my feet, that can give me that power to know who I am and be able to move forward from that place. So that, I feel like, is the very first place in any of this, is just to really come back to ourselves before we go in. If you're kind of out there and not really in your body, not really connected to yourself, to have these conversations, you've got nowhere to get grounded from. So that's the first thing. So the next part of it is it's not about who is right. Everyone's doing their best. It's not going in to talk to your partner about this stuff needs to be a war. It's really about going in and saying, well, this is me and this is you. So what am I not accepting about myself, and what am I not accepting about you, and what can I do to bring greater acceptance? How can I take the competition out of this? I remember when my kids were little, I would, my partner would come home, he was building a house, and I had been looking after, I had under two for a while there, and it would almost be like we were competing to see who had the hardest day. It's ridiculous to think of it now, but it's that it doesn't have to be a competition. It's about both being able to not be, there's many ways to be right. Everyone can be right. And the other part of it is kind of like the balm. Like, this is the bit that you put on to make it just all lovely and good. And that's the appreciation, the open-heartedness, the gratitude, the loving kindness, that, that real love for each other. If you can walk into a conversation feeling like you're grounded, that everybody in the conversation is right, that it's not a competition, and you're coming in with an open heart, then you are coming in a really beautiful way. Like, you're starting off the most powerful way that you possibly can. If you're coming in not feeling grounded, full of ready for a fight, and not feeling the love, then you're going to have a very different conversation. Okay, did you want to jump in with any questions at this point, Ellie?
I was actually just unmuting for a question. What I was going to say is obviously the challenging thing is that you can control those things about yourself, but you know, how do you ensure that your partner is coming in with that same open heartedness and gratitude and all the rest of it? Because I'm sure what could potentially happen is that you might be going in feeling like that, but then if they're not going to give you that, then your back would get up and then you would be like, you know, dragged into that other scenario. So how do people make sure that their partners are also in that place?
Okay, so I think there's two parts to this. One is, the first part is that you're actually not responsible for how they come in.
Right.
Like, they're going to come in how they come in, and that's not your responsibility, which makes it harder, but it's actually out of your control. So letting go of responsibility for that is just a really freeing experience. It's like, well, if you want to be all like, you know, judgy and whatever. The other thing is that this way of being grounded and non-judgmental and with an open heart is a much higher vibration. And if you can stay in that place, then you have the ability to raise their vibration, to bring them up, to bring them along. Like, it's almost like with kids how we do it, like you don't tell them what to do, you do it yourself and they learn how to do it that way. It's that role modeling. So to do that with your partner is really great. The other thing is, if they're coming in and they're being all judgy, that's them. You don't have to take it on. And if you're in the grounded place of going, okay, yep, that's them, and we'll talk about this more in a moment, then it just goes back onto them. You don't have to take it on. You know, it's that kind of thing, like if there's a path full of stones that are going to stick up and hurt your feet, you can walk over them in pain or whatever, or you can put your shoes on. And having this kind of grounded, open-hearted way of being is like putting your shoes on. It's like, your stuff, but I'm staying grounded and centered, which, you know, is a lot easier said than done.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what we're aiming for. Is that if you can stay in that place, then that's going to raise the vibration and they will come along.
Yeah.
In the next section, there's a whole lot more. In this belonging part, there's a whole lot more about helping them with that. So maybe we'll jump into that. But is there any other things about this being sort of space?
No, I think that's good. That was the only question I had, because I know that my mums would have been thinking that.
Yep. So we'll jump into that a little bit more, because some of these, the next section is really practical. And so we're going to give you some really practical skills to, when they come in and they're shitty or they're not open-hearted or they're just nah, 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 we're going to have a look at some skills to kind of go, all right, I can see you're feeling that.
Perfect.
Let's move on. So I'll bring the screen share back. Okay, so you can hear me still? Beautiful. So the next part is about belonging. So more of the techie stuff. This is where authenticity. So this is where we stand up and we be ourselves. So the really big part of this is that it's about what we were just talking about. We don't take on responsibility for their stuff. We take on responsibility for our own stuff. And we have boundaries. So if they start putting their stuff on us, we don't take it. You know, they want to be critical, they want to be whatever, that's theirs. We don't have to take that on. The other part of it is that showing up as yourself is vulnerable. Like, it really is a vulnerable place. And if they're coming at you with criticism, then you're going to err more on the side of having a strong boundary than being vulnerable. So it's this balance between showing a bit of yourself, but making sure that you're not showing so much that you feel like you're not safe. And it's courageous. Like, actually showing up and showing, you know, like, our businesses tend to be this kind of raw passion that we really do need to nurture and love and support and protect. And putting them in the scrutiny of somebody that's going to be critical of them can be really hard. So it's really important to have that balance of boundaries of not taking their stuff on, as well as the courage to stand up and say, but I love this. This is what my heart calls me to do. So boundaries can be as simple as like saying, you know, if they start being critical, just to point that out, like when you say these things, I don't feel comfortable. I don't want to keep sharing. It feels like you're being critical. So just calling things is a really great way to have a boundary. And just saying, oh, well, let's talk about this when you're feeling more calm, or when you're, you know, that's another boundary. Like, we can't talk about this through whatever turmoil they're going through. So figuring out when to say, stop, that's enough, is really great in terms of boundaries. So more on this, it's self-responsibility. It's kind of like not taking on, it's not taking on their stuff, and it's not putting your stuff on them. So when you find yourself blaming your partner, you're not taking responsibility, you're putting it onto them. When you're saying things like, you make me feel, you're putting it onto them again. And when you think it's their fault, that's also putting it onto them. So any of those places is kind of like spewing your emotion on top of them. What we're wanting to do is we're going to switch it up. Instead of blaming, kind of go, well, what am I responsible in this? How do I feel? And owning our feelings rather than feeling like they're being inflicted upon us. And looking at, well, what part do I play? How am I part of this? And how are they part of it? Like, this isn't about taking it all onto ourselves. It's about looking at it in a balanced way of what's my stuff and what's their stuff. So in terms of boundaries, you are not responsible for the way that others react. That's theirs. That's maybe been triggered by something that you've done or said, but that's theirs. That's probably got a long history going all the way when they were the same age as your children. Like, it's something that's theirs. So the question to ask is, how are you taking on other people's stuff? So just noticing when you feel like it's your fault. So if going back to these, the boundary is the opposite. When do I feel blamed? When do I feel like it's my fault? When do I feel guilty? When do I feel guilty for taking time for myself? So looking at when you're they're the moments that you're taking on other people's stuff. So yeah, vulnerability and courage. So it's about, you know, what we spoke about before, like, it's scary. So every time you do it, I really encourage you to step back and give yourself a pat on the back and really sort of celebrate the little things that you share that are outside of your comfort zone. Like, really celebrate them, because it is a totally courageous act. So did you have any questions about that, Ali, before I go on to the empathy part?
No, it's all very self-explanatory, so nothing else has popped up yet.
Okay, great. So belonging, the next part of belonging is about empathy. So empathy is really about trying to put yourself in each other's shoes. And if you and your partner can develop a communication style that reeks of empathy, then you guys are going to be in great stead. Because basically in empathy, what you're trying to do is like, I want to understand what's going on for you, and I want you to understand what's going on for me. So we need to give ourselves empathy. And this is something that I learned in parenthood. Like, I did not have this in very good development before I had kids. And that was that honoring that when I feel something, that it's totally okay, and that it's actually, our emotions are playing a beautiful role of letting us know about stuff that's going on under the surface. So if you are feeling angry, it usually means that you need to have boundaries. If you're feeling sad, it's usually something you need to let go of. So emotions communicate a whole lot of stuff to us. So they're really powerful. But what sits underneath the emotions is what we need and what we want and what we desire. And if we keep these locked away and we don't share them with our partner, if we don't even acknowledge them with ourselves, then it's very difficult to have our needs met if we don't even know what they are. So it's really, in the first instance, it's an exploration of, well, what is it that I need here? Like, why am I going crazy? Do I need some more space? Do I need some acknowledgement? Do I need respect? What is it that I'm longing for? Or do I need to feel connected with my partner? So looking at, well, what's underneath it all? What is it that my heart is desiring in this moment? And if you can get to that place of understanding what it is that you really long for and what you desire and what you need, and communicate from that place rather than, at the more superficial level. So, look, I really need you to take the rubbish out right now. No, what I need is to share the load. I feel like we need to share the load of the house duties, and it would be great if you could take the rubbish out. It's very different because it's getting to the core of what you need. Like, I need mutuality here. I need to be moving together as one, and how are some ways that we can do that? Because they don't not want to take the rubbish out right now. They might be busy doing something else. So it's really getting to the core of what it is that you need and desire. Then the other side of it is to look at, well, what do they feel and what do they need? So if you guys could have a conversation which was really about, well, what do I feel and what do I need? And then, well, what do you feel and what do you need? And how can we both have what we long for and desire? How is it possible that we can both have that? And quite often what happens is mums, especially after that early year where you kind of put your needs aside for your child, and partners can kind of jump on the bandwagon of that because, we kind of get into the groove of doing it all and making it all happen and keeping it all together because, we're good at it and we're the ones that it's easy for. And we put up what we need and we desire aside for that initial period, but then it comes back, and it comes back in spades. But it's a transition because we need to re-establish not only being able to communicate that, but believing that it's valid. Like, so many mums can fall into the trap of feeling like what they need and want and desire isn't important. It's not as valid. It's of a lesser importance than everybody else's needs and values. So if you take nothing else out of today, I'd just like to offer the idea that everybody's needs are of equal value and equal importance, and that one person having their needs met doesn't mean everybody else doesn't get to. It is possible to negotiate a situation where everybody's needs can be met, especially if you think creatively about it. So
I was actually going to ask Trish, just in that respect of negotiating if everyone's creative about it, and this might be putting you on the spot, but I was just wondering, do you potentially have like a little case study where you can just say, this person wanted this, and this person wanted this, and then this is how they developed something that suited everyone? Is there anything you might be able to draw on?
Absolutely. Okay, so I'll just turn off the screen share because I feel better when I'm actually here.
Yeah.
Because I use my arms to talk. Okay, so let me think. So one couple that I was working with, they had a situation where he was away and some things were moved out of the house and put into the garage, and because they were cleaning up and moving out. And then he came home and was really kind of put out that he'd been his things had been moved. And so there was a big blow up. And so, you know, when you break it down to what each person was needing, you come to a much, like the thing, it was really nothing about the box, okay? So on one hand, you have the mum needing to have order in the house and wanting to clean up and make space and bring that structure into the house. But on the other side, he was feeling upset, like he'd been put out. What he was needing was actually to feel that he belonged and that he was respected. So when you look at it at that level, it's very different to, like, you know, if you're fighting about, well, the box shouldn't have been moved, well, it should have, and it's been done, and, you know, like, if you're fighting about the box, you're never going to get anywhere, because the box isn't the core of it. The box is the catalyst, the thing that's broken this much deeper thing that's been going on. So then if you look at, okay, she's needing order, he's needing the sense of belonging. How can they both have that? Then it's a very different conversation. Then it's a conversation about, okay, so if I'm going to move any of your things out of the house, I'm going to talk to you about it first, or I'm going to do this and create order in this way, but you're still part of this family and I want to respect you and have these decisions with you. A very different conversation to, you moved the box. No, I didn't. So it's that moving down through the layer. So the superficial thing isn't what you want to have the conversation. That's just the beginning. It's to go down to how are you feeling and what's underneath that? Like, what's the real need and desire that's underneath that? And needs can be met in lots of different ways. Like, together after that conversation, they're like, yeah, the box should totally be in the shed. Like, you know, so it's that, it's working on that level. And when you get to that point, it's also then being creative about, well, how do you get those needs met? If you're still sitting up at the box level and you haven't really dropped down, you can't get creative about a box, but you can get creative about order and belonging. Like, that's something you can really, and the ideas you can come up with how to make that happen more is like, well, while you're away, we're going to have a check-in where I talk to you each day and I'll let you know of the things that are going on a mundane house level. And, you know, and also that, you know, for this space in the house, I get complete control over it. If you don't like what I've done here, well, you know, and yeah, sure, you have that part of the house. So it's that, it kind of expands the conversation to look at the bigger scope of the thing. It's not about the box anymore. So yeah, how's that?
That's like perfect. I'm glad I asked that question, because I think a lot of people will be able to relate to that. I know my ex and I, when we were traveling through India, had an argument about an orange.
Yes. Yes, so let's have a look. Well, what was really going on?
Oh God, it was so long ago, I don't even remember. All I remember is it started about an orange. Oh, there was absolutely stuff going on underneath that I can't remember. But I'm sure every mum has an example of something that they were just fighting over, something so inane and ridiculous, but you don't really have the skills or the understanding to go, oh, okay, well, what's below this and what's driving it? So I think that was a perfect example there.
Yeah, and I think the more that we do that, the more we bury down into, well, what's actually really going on? You know, like leaving the knife on the chopping board with air. He was away and some things were moved out of the house and put into the garage, and because they were cleaning up and moving out. And then he came home and was really kind of put out that he'd been sort of, his things had been moved. And so there was a big blow up. And so, you know, when you break it down to what each person was needing, you come to a much, like the thing, it was really nothing about the box, okay? So on one hand, you have the mum needing to have order in the house and wanting to clean up and make space and bring that structure into the house. But on the other side, he was feeling upset, like he'd been put out. What he was needing was actually to feel that he belonged and that he was respected. So when you look at it at that level, it's very different to, like, you know, if you're fighting about, well, the box shouldn't have been moved, well, it should have, and it's been done, and, you know, like, if you're fighting about the box, you're never going to get anywhere, because the box isn't the core of it. The box is the the catalyst, the thing that's broken this much deeper thing that's been going on. So then if you look at, okay, she's needing order, he's needing the sense of belonging. How can they both have that? Then it's a very different conversation. Then it's a conversation about, okay, so if I'm going to move any of your things out of the house, I'm going to talk to you about it first, or I'm going to do this and create order in this way, but you're still part of this family and I want to respect you and have these decisions with you. A very different conversation to, you moved the box. No, I didn't. So it's that moving down through the layer. So the superficial thing isn't what you want to have the conversation. That's just the beginning. It's to go down to how are you feeling and what's underneath that? Like, what's the real need and desire that's underneath that? And needs can be met in lots of different ways. Like, together after that conversation, they're like, yeah, the box should totally be in the shed. Like, you know, so it's that, it's working on that level. And when you get to that point, it's also then being creative about, well, how do you get those needs met? If you're still sitting up at the box level and you haven't really dropped down, you can't get creative about a box, but you can get creative about order and belonging. Like, that's something you can really, and the ideas you can come up with how to make that happen more is like, well, while you're away, we're going to have a check-in where I talk to you each day and I'll let you know of the things that are going on a mundane house level. And, you know, and also that, you know, for this space in the house, I get complete control over it. If you don't like what I've done here, well, you know, and yeah, sure, you have that part of the house. So it's that it kind of expands the conversation to look at the bigger scope of the thing. It's not about the box anymore. So, yeah, how's that?
That's like perfect. I'm glad I asked that question because I think a lot of people will be able to relate to that. I know my ex and I, when we were traveling through India, had an argument about an orange.
Yes. Yeah, so let's have a look for what was really going on.
Oh God, it was so long ago. I don't even remember. All I remember is it started about an orange. There was absolutely stuff going on underneath that I can't remember. But I'm sure every mum has an example of something that they were just fighting over, something so inane and ridiculous, but you don't really have the skills or the understanding to go, oh, okay, well, what's below this and what's driving it? So I think that was a perfect example there.
Yeah, and I think the more that we do that, the more we bury down into, well, what's actually really going on? You know, like leaving the knife on the chopping board with, you know, butter on it after making sandwiches in the morning, or leaving the toilet seat up, or forgetting to take your shoes off at the door. You know, that's about really different things. And it often comes down to, it was really interesting. I was talking about this at a baby business group in town the other week, and the mums were going, I just kind of expect him to know what I'm wanting, and then I get really angry when he doesn't do it. And I'm realizing that I'm probably not actually telling him that I want. So it's that, you know, really checking in, and this is where the communication stuff comes in. So if we can communicate in a way, so there's three parts of the communication I want to talk about today. And the first one is listening. So listening is actually really tricky. I'm actually marking my my students at RMIT. They've been working on active listening this week, and it's just really interesting to see how many people you know, each semester come through and go, wow, gee, it's actually really difficult to listen and be really present. So when I say active listening, what I'm talking about is where you're listening with all of your attention, like you're fully there, and it has an energy of curiosity. Like, it's not listening like, oh yeah, well, you finished already? Like, okay, come on. Like, it's listening with real curiosity, like, wow, so what's going on for you? Like, it's that real, I want to understand you. I want to get insight to your world. Please tell me more. It's that energy. And we're also, and this is the trickiest part, trying to do it without judgment. Oh God, that's a stupid thing to say. Oh my goodness. You know, like those sorts of thoughts going on in your head isn't active listening. It's you know, it's a critical analysis that's going on there. That's not a the thing about listening is that and this comes back to the point you were talking before, Ali, is that it really helps to change the vibration. If somebody is angry and upset, a lot of the time that what they could be needing is to be heard. So just by listening to them, the whole mood changes. Like I remember with a partner, he would get really, get really upset about something, and he would just need to talk gobbledygook for half an hour, not gobbledygook, but, you know, going on these huge emotional swings of, you know, blaming and self-blaming and, you know, destruction, and, you know, like go through this whole thing. And then after talking that through, after half an hour, he'd be like a total normal person again. So the power of listening is actually really incredible. When somebody feels like they're being heard and they're being listened to, it can be really powerful. The thing with this as well, though, if they're being blaming and they're being judgmental, is to let that kind of like just wash off your back like a duck. We're going for that sort of, because basically when somebody is being critical, there's two ways to look at it that I find really helpful. One is that it's usually something that they're really critical about themselves. So it's usually a self-criticism that they can't hold in and they put it onto you. The other part of it is that it's their perception, their judgment, and that belongs to them. You don't need to take it on. It's like, I'm going to listen, but I'm going to put on my shoes and I'm not going to get rocks on my feet. Like, I'm putting an umbrella on, and all of that rain that you're pouring over me is just going to go off the side. I'm going to listen, but I'm not taking it on. And feeling your feet, like that grounding exercise of feeling your feet, is really powerful in this. And being aware of your breathing is really, really gorgeous in this as well. You can use it as a meditation while they're going on their ranting. You can be breathing, meditating, listening, hearing, but not taking it on. The other part of this that is so powerful, and this is not something that we really use in day-to-day talk, but it is so powerful. Like as a coach, when I'm coaching my clients, reflecting is the place where the aha moments come. Like I'll ask a client a question, they'll give me a response. I will reflect back to them. I will say what I've heard them say, and they go, oh my God, yes. And it's like, I haven't told them anything that they didn't know. That's really just their own knowledge, but they're hearing it back, which has a whole different power to it. The other thing that happens in reflecting is it's kind of the end of a loop. Like if I've been listening to somebody and then they come back and they summarize to me what they've heard me say, I feel so listened to. Like it's like, oh my God, they weren't just sitting there like in la la land. Like they were really taking that in. They were really understanding that. The other thing that happens is it's a way to check in that you've heard correctly. Because often what will happen in a conversation with your partner is they'll say one thing and you'll hear a completely different thing. And then you will move forward based on two completely different ideas of the conversation that just happened. This is a way to kind of really ground it. So I'm hearing that you're really upset about the orange, and, you know, so it's, it's a way to kind of really, yeah, okay, so this is what I'm hearing. It's like a full stop, pause, return back to, yeah, have I got this right? And it's just really, really quite powerful. You're having a giggle there, Ali? Do you want to jump on? So the last part of this that I really want to go into is the questioning. So if you can, how are we doing for time, Ali? Are we still good?
Yeah, it's 45 minutes now. So, you know, another 5-10 minutes. Is that roughly what you've got?
We can totally do that. Yeah.
Cool.
I told you I can just go. So the question part of it is, this is just really, it's really simple, but it's really powerful. And it'll be really interesting to see when you go and try to use these sort of questions, how it goes. But using how and what as open-ended questions. There's also where and when, but they're specific. But if you can say, so what's happening with the orange? Like, to really kind of go into that place of like curiosity, like, how did the orange end up there? So, you know, like that it's curious. You're wanting to ask your questions with curiosity. If you ask a closed question like, did you take the orange? Or why have you got the orange? It has a different energy to it. It can almost be like it's a judgment. Like, it's almost like saying, well, why have you got that when you shouldn't? And do you have that? It's kind of like, you see it's already preempting an answer. You only get a yes or a no. So you've narrowed down the possibilities to a yes or no. So it doesn't allow a continuation of flow of a conversation. It also narrows it down to what can almost be an accusation. So as much as you can when you're talking with your partner, avoid why questions and avoid closed questions, especially if it's delicate, and stick to the what and the how. And it really does allow things to open up. And you could be really surprised at the answers you get. If you only ever ask closed-ended questions, you're not going to get that same amount of understanding of what's happening for them. So yeah, and the last one is just that if you're asking for something, to request it rather than demand it is a much more effective way to move forward. And if they say no, then you negotiate, well, how would we get a yes here? How would we get this something to happen? So if you demand something, it's really hard to go back to negotiation, because you kind of got to a standoff. Whereas if it's requesting, it's kind of like a dance. Oh, can you take the rubbish out? No, love, I'm busy. Oh, could you do it in a little while? Oh, maybe, I've got these other things on. Well, could you do something else and I'll do the rubbish because I'm a bit busy? Oh, yeah, we could do that. I could do this. And, you know, like, so it becomes a negotiation rather than, if you don't take the rubbish out now, I'm not going to talk to you for the rest of the night. You know, like that sort of, like, there's nowhere to go from there. You're done. If they say no, it's over. So as much as you can, to request rather than demanding. So the very last part, and I'll just touch on this briefly, is about becoming. So the first thing is about making choices, and yeah, just really have a moment to think about, well, how do I make my choices? What am I making them by myself? Am I making them in partnership? Am I making them with my partner? But the big one to look at is a vision. So this is where you'll let yourself dream. Like, we all have visions for our business. We all have visions for our children. We all have visions for our partnerships. But do you share them with your partner? Have you created a shared vision together? It doesn't have to be a really big formal process, but have you guys sat down and shared your dreams about each area of your life? So in terms of getting your partner on board with your business, like, all that communication stuff is really helpful, but I really think that the big one here is to share your dreams, hear their dreams, and come up with a dream for both of you together that really still stands on that, like, what you need is valid and what they need is valid and what your kids need is valid, but they're all important. And so to look at, wow, okay, what's my vision and what's our vision? And there'll be parts of your vision that won't be parts of your partner's vision and won't be part of your shared vision. So you both have your own individual visions, but then there's a path where they meet and you have a shared vision. And that's the place where you get to talk about how you would love them to support you in your business, how you would love them to support you in these ways of parenting, where, you know, this is where having a shared vision for your relationships allows you to talk about, so much juicy stuff. Like, it can be property, it can be, you know, place where you're going to live, where you want your kids to go to school, what kind of upbringing do you want them to have, what are your values about that. It can be about what you want to have happening in terms of your business and your dreams. It can be about the bedroom and what you want for your sex life. Like, there is so much that can go into this shared vision. And I just see with so many people, so many couples, the lacking of this shared vision means that you're never both working towards the same thing. And the broader you can have that, like if you can have a shared vision for everything, then you're going to be both being propelled. So when I think of a vision, just going to turn off this. When I think of a vision, I think of it kind of like, it's like a rubber band between me and the future. So if I come up with a vision, it sort of creates a band between me and my vision, and it's pulling me forward towards it. So if I've got a vision that's pulling me this way and my partner's got a vision that's pulling me that way, and we don't have a shared vision, we're both going off in other directions, and we're getting cranky at each other because we're not supporting each other on the journey, but we've never come together to come with that vision that pulls us both. So ideally what you're looking to have is a vision that's pulling you and your partner forward, and your individual visions that supplement that and are pulling you alongside of that. So coming up with a shared vision is just a really gorgeous and beautiful way to move forward. From there, obviously, then there's the action steps and the actual action of making it happen. But I really do believe that the vision is the sticking point for most couples, like that. And it's back to that vulnerability. Like, to come up with a shared vision means you have to share your dreams with your partner, and that's a vulnerable place to come. So I would love to just give you a big cheer for a bit of courage to kind of really stand up and to have that courage to do that, and to share. And it doesn't have to be all at once. Like, it's just one small step at a time. Like, if sharing your vision about your kids is the starting point, that's beautiful. Like, that will give you a really steady foundation. If then sharing about, your work and your careers is the next step, or maybe you want to do it about your sex life, or maybe you want to do it about your property, or just choosing different areas to come together and share a vision on, will build that connection, will build that trust. Yeah, okay. Hi.
We did it.
We did it. Yay.
Thanks for listening to me. If you think that you would love to know when my next video comes out, you can. Just subscribe here or here or here or down there or somewhere around here. You'll see the subscribe button. Hope to see you again. Bye.